It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA.
I'm Brian O'Neill on today with stock market expert J.R. Fenwick. He's just outside of Washington, D.C. in a suburb in the Maryland area. J.R., thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, J.R., a couple of months ago, I was sitting in the newsroom writing a local news story, and I noticed we kept getting emails from ABC Radio News. In the old days, back in the 1980s and 90s, ABC, we used to have this little speaker in the studio from ABC, and they'd say, attention stations, we have a story coming up at the top of the hour. Now they just send a quick little email and tell us, big story popping up. You might want to post it online. You'll definitely want to know about it on the air. Well, a couple of months ago, all of a sudden, it was getting flooded with emails from ABC. This was in late August, and ABC was saying there were problems with the stock market. Turned out to be connected with some problems going on in the stock market in China. Wondering, are people who are new to the stock market, and that's the group you deal with, are they wary since the August problems with China, and should they be?
Well, to answer your first question, yes, they're wary because, again, a lot of this has to do with misconceptions, myths, and just outright non-truths about the stock market. And so if you don't know, one of two things happens. If you are in the stock market, and let's say you're an investor and you're holding some stocks, you panic, you get scared to death. Or if you're not in the stock market, you just simply don't get in because you just believe all these rumors and myths and things like this. But here's what I'd like your listening audience to think about. If the stock market were really what some people say, this big boogie monster that'll gobble you up, would most wealthy people be involved in it in some way, shape, or form? It is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, wealth creator and generator next to real estate that's out there. So the wealthy people know that, but they take the time to educate themselves on it. So yes, that whole China stock market thing did affect the way people think. And to answer the second part of your question, should they be scared? If you're not educated, you should be petrified. If you're educated, you can take advantage of it. You can take advantage of it, for sure.
So in other words, if you know what you're doing, no problem. If you've never driven in heavy snow before and you're driving in Hornellsville, New York,
you might be a little nervous. Probably be best to pull over and stick your thumb out and try and hitch a ride with somebody who knows how to drive in that weather.
What are the pitfalls to avoid if you're... I have two questions here. What are the pitfalls to avoid with the stock market if you're new? And what are the pitfalls to avoid if you're old, meaning you've been around a long time, you've had stocks for a long time, maybe you're a little complacent? Let's start out with the second question. What are the pitfalls to avoid if you're an older person playing the stock market? What are the pitfalls there?
Okay. The older person who's involved in the stock market has to understand that the world is now very close and intertwined, and there can be volatility that can come from anywhere, whether it's China, whether it's Greece going broke, whether it's Japan, Russia, all these type things, including things inside of the U.S. that can affect the stock market. And so, and a lot of the experts are projecting there's going to be a whole lot more volatility. And so this notion of, I just buy a stock and hold it till I'm retired and it'll just go up, because everybody says historically it goes up. Well, there's a possibility that could happen. But there's also a possibility, just using an example, that you could buy or have bought in a stock for $50. It rode all the way up to, say, $150 in this example. I'm just making this up now. But it has happened in real life. So let's say you got it at 50. It went all the way up to 150. 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, you're ready to retire, and that stock is back down to $50 where you bought it. And so if you're not educated, and if you don't know how to put certain measures in place to protect what you have there, you could find that when you go to withdraw your money, it might be at the same level, about the same level, or even worse, less than you bought the stock at 50, it went up to 150, and now it's at 35. And that's happening more and more frequently nowadays.
What are the pitfalls? What are the big pitfalls to avoid if you're younger and newer to the stock market?
It's going to get back to education again. Before you jump into this game, before you get on that snowy highway, like you mentioned earlier, get that basic education and even advanced education to understand, how the market works. And then you want to have a strategy of going into it. Most people, when they get in their car and they're going somewhere, or they get in their cars because they're going somewhere. And if they don't know how to get there, then they can use a GPS to give them exact directions. But very few people just hop in their car daily and just say, I'm going nowhere. It's going to drive wherever it takes me. Oh, and by the way, I also don't know how the steering wheel works, the brakes, the accelerator, none of the other controls work. I'm just going to take my luck at it. But people do that every day because they hear about the stock market. So get educated on what a stock is, how the stock market works, what tools are available for you to use. But more importantly, what do you want to get out of it? I mean, do you want to be an investor where you buy a stock and hold it for the long run? Or do you want to be a trader or a stock flipper where you say, hey, I like that right now money? Everybody, there's an old saying, I got right now bills, I want some right now money. And so stock flippers and traders, we like to get our money today. It's a skill set that we've developed where we can go into the stock market and extract out money. And whether it's daily or weekly or monthly. And I have a nickname for the stock market, and I call it the ATM machine, because once you develop the skill set, you get pretty good at it. Really almost on any given day, you can go and pull some kind of money out of it using a strategy. But it's not just going in there, willy-nilly. I'm going to throw some dice and roll and hope I make some money.
You're talking about the ATM machine. I knew a politician, actually from Hornellsville, where I just mentioned, and she used to say that she could not abide the politicians who used taxpayer money as their personal ATM machine.
That makes sense.
You talk about, older people and younger people playing the stock market. One thing that the older people have been affected by across the board is how the digital media, obviously Facebook, Twitter, and the whole internet has changed the world. And wondering, has digital media changed the way the market works? Are things going faster now? Or do people tend to panic faster? Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. I mean, I'm going to give you the star for the best question of the day, because it has, and that causes a tremendous amount of volatility. And what I mean for your listening audience when I say volatility is the stocks shoot up and shoot down and move very quickly in a short period of time. And so what happens is, because of social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all these other ones that are out there, news travels faster, all right? And it gets to people, and it can cause a panic. So let's say, let me give you a perfect example. A lot of people have iPhones. And when the iPhone 6 came out, all right, and one thing I know about people who have iPhones is they're typically fanatics if you get into discussion. Because I don't have an iPhone, so I get on these almost combative discussions with people all the time about iPhone. But so the iPhone 6 came out, and one video surfaced on YouTube that said this guy sat on his new iPhone and it bent. Next thing you know, all these videos started popping up on YouTube. They started calling it Bendgate and all this, and they started saying the material that was used for the iPhone was cheap, and this, on and on.
Wasn't that something that was done in the Oliver Stone movie Wall Street, where one of the characters in the movie started rumors that were not true, and things went from bad to worse all of a sudden?
Yep. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that too. But what happened is, when I saw this happening, I knew that Apple stock was going to take I didn't know 100%, but it's reasonable and logic that stock could take a little turn.
Sure.
And when it did, I hopped right in and made money as it was going down, using a technique to make money when the stock goes down. So that's an example of information that travels really, really quickly. And what happens is people panic. I mean, imagine if you're a person, and let's just keep using this example, who had Apple stock, right? And you were all excited You know, your stock had been going up steadily. Then you're like, doggone it, they came out with this new phone, and it's bending. And I'm looking at my stock, and my stock is going down. $1, $2, $3, $5. You start getting panicked. And you're not the only one who's panicked. It's all the other people who are out there who are investors, just straight investors. They start panicking, and you start selling those shares of stock off. And that stock starts going down and tumbling. All right? Now, there's also something called fomenting, which is, as I understand it, illegal. And fomenting is where you make up a story or you embellish a story to drive a stock down. And this happens on Wall Street behind closed doors. I just did a workshop today on it. And you put this information out to purposefully drive a stock down, which is illegal, so that people can come who know how to do it and ride the stock down in price. It's not illegal to make money off of a stock as it's going down in price. It is illegal to just go out there and just make up a bunch of, negative and false and untrue information to drive a stock price down, but people do it. But if you know how to take advantage of it either way, you kind of have an advantage.
How about, we talk about how the digital media, Facebook and Twitter and all these websites have changed the way the market works in some ways and the way that some people can manipulate in unethical ways. What about the way digital media, Facebook, Twitter, and others, have they changed the way that the reporting style of the major financial media outlets like Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg report? Has there been an effect on the way that these big media conglomerates now report on the Wall Street news?
Yeah, I think so, because it's just the information can get out so much quicker. I mean, if you think about it, in times past, you read the paper, you had to wait for the paper to come out. But now we're talking about as the stuff is happening, a millisecond after it happens, boom, it's in the news. And it's out and distributed. And, I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. I think people like to know when stuff happens. But on the flip side of that, it could be, as they say in legal terms, a rush to judgment, and all the facts may not be in, and it causes all this panic. Going back to the iPhone 6 example, and it turns out that there was like 10 phones out of 10 million that actually bent, and probably out of those 10, 5 of them people were trying to bend them, And so imagine if the media picked up on that, which it did, and shot all this out, and they caused all this panic, and then it's 10 phones out of 10 million. Well, it's probably going to be 10 phones out of 10 million that have a defect anyway.
Sure.
But, it's a media-driven world, and so what the name of the game is, in my opinion, is understanding how to take advantage of that. News can affect the stock, whether it's true or not. So if that be the case, then you can learn how to use that.
Now, I did have one more question. YouTube reporters, a big thing in the news media. So, for example, if someone is at a scene of a crime and a person is being arrested, the witnesses there or the crime victim or the crime suspect will often pull out cameras, and sometimes these people are referred to as YouTube reporters. Wondering, is there anything similar to that in the financial news media with people on Wall Street pulling out their cameras and posting videos on YouTube, and then it becomes a YouTube sensation in the financial news world?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's more along the lines of what we call these chat rooms. And so what happens is some of these chat rooms have thousands of people in them, some a few hundred, just depends on how exclusive or not exclusive they are. But people are constantly looking at what's going on, so they can use that to their advantage. Now, these are knowledgeable people, what I'm saying, who understand how the market works, and they can take a snapshot of a stock chart. They can take a snapshot of a news article and blast it out to their group, within a matter of minutes, sometimes even seconds, and that's some of the stuff that we do too. So, I'll give you an example, because this just happened. So, billionaire Oprah Winfrey decided that she was going to buy, I think it was 10%. Don't quote me on the percentage, but I think it was 10% of Weight Watchers. And she said she believed in the company. I think she said she had used them before and it helped her, and she wanted to get back in and lose some weight. She believes in the company, so she bought 10% of it. So their stock shot up, I want to say from $7 to $14. Don't quote me on the exact amount, but I believe that's what it was. Well, that's like 100% increase in a day. You talk about a return on your money.
Sure.
So things like that. So what happens is, people on the watch. People on the watch, and they'll shoot that out to their group or the people that they're coaching, mentoring, or teaching. That's just an example of how quickly this information can come out and you can take advantage of it. But for sure, there are people who are watching every second for something to come out. I guess you could call them stock market watchers, and they're really looking to take advantage of it because they feel that they put together. I call it a high probability hypothesis or thesis. High probability that if Oprah, a billionaire, buys into this company, and believes in it, well, the Oprah effect will take effect, and that value of that company will go up, and therefore the value of the stock will go up, and people can take advantage of it. So that's a high probability hypothesis or thesis. And I teach my Flip That Stock members, that's what we go for. We like the low-hanging fruit. It's so low that when you're walking, if you're walking on the sidewalk, the branch is hanging down, and the orange just hits you in your forehead so that you can't miss it,
I hear you.
High probability, low-hanging fruit when we're flipping stocks.
We're talking with J.R. Fenwick, and he lives in the Maryland area, advises people on a lot of stock market issues, has a website, and we're going to find out what that website is when we come back on the Newsmaker Show and how JR can help people on the stock market. Stay with us. Brian O'Neill on the Newsmaker Show here on Wednesday morning, October 21st, talking with J.R. Fenwick. CJ, what is your website? And tell us, what is it you do for people who want to know all this, either people who need to know the stock market 101 who are just beginners, or people who've been around a while who would like to learn something about the new trends?
Okay. Well, our website is flipthatstock.com. Flipthatstock.com. And it's FLIP, flipthatstock.com. Tell you a real quick, funny, it's kind of funny. It's like, one of my favorite shows is Flip That House. I don't know what it is about that show, but I love that show. I cannot, if an episode's on, I got to watch it.
Sure.
One day I'm watching the show, and all these people, this is before I started Flip That Stock, were asking me to teach them. I started telling a few friends about how I was flipping stocks and stuff, so many people started asking me to teach them. So one day I'm watching Flip That House, and I said, I'm doing the same thing that they're doing, except I'm doing it with stocks. And it's a lot easier, and it's a lot less risky, and so, and I don't mean to offend any of your listeners if they flip houses or anything like that. I'm not against flipping houses. I believe in real estate. I'm just saying how I came up with the concept of Flip That Stock, and that's when I said, I'm going to start the company. But yeah, so they can go to flipthatstock.com, and what we do is we're an education and technology company, and we have basically two different types of memberships. The first membership is we take a beginner, and we can take them from not even knowing anything about the stock market to educating on what a stock is, how the stock market works, how to read charts, what tools and software and things like that to get, to practicing live in the stock market and then going live in the stock market. So we have one membership, and we do live weekly trading sessions. So now that you've learned what you've learned, you can see it live in action. And let me say this up front, too. We don't guarantee that anybody's going to make a certain amount of money. Nobody can guarantee that in anything, whether you're opening a new business, whether you're playing a sport, you can't guarantee you're going to win and all this. So the name of the game is going after high probability situations and protecting yourself to minimize losses if you were going to, if you had the possibility of incurring a loss. And so a lot of people, so-called like stock market gurus, and I don't consider myself a guru, I just consider myself somebody who learned about the market and became passionate about it. A lot of them won't take people live in the market to demonstrate different stuff because they're afraid, well, if they lose some money, they'd be embarrassed in front of the students. What I teach my Flip That Stock members and students is how do you handle yourself if the stock isn't doing what you want it to do? How do you stay calm? Well, the first way is you've already got a game plan before you went in. And so I teach them all the things to maximize profits, minimize losses, stay calm. Then we have another membership, which is more of a personal one-on-one. And this is for people who say, hey, I want J.R. Fenwick, I want you to teach me one-on-one outside of a group session. We do this through screen sharing. So we have members all over the country and some into Canada. We do a screen sessions where we can teach them one-on-one in the evening hours, during stock market hours, and we help them kind of customize the game plan specifically for what they're looking to do. And those are the two memberships that we offer. And next year we're actually coming out with our own stock flipping software, which we're very excited about. So a lot of exciting things happening. All
righty. J.R. Fenwick, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Was there any final points you wanted to make before we go?
Yeah, I would just say, for those of you who are not involved in the stock market, and you thought that, I have to have a special degree or certification. You don't. Or I have to be rich to start off in the stock market. You don't. Or that, it's just too complicated, all this stuff. Really, we have a very, very, very unique method in which we teach people. I'm a person who has a health background, and I'm used to taking complex issues and breaking them down into very simple teaching methods and terms. So I encourage you, hey, get involved. Get involved, because if you're not, you really are missing out on one of the greatest wealth builders ever created for people. And then if you are in the market, you can never, if you're just an investor, hey, it's good to know about trading and flipping, because that is definitely the wave of the future, and some things that are coming and already in place that are building. And a lot of people don't know that's what they're doing on Wall Street behind closed doors. There's a lot of computers and algorithms that people are buying and selling stocks as fractions of a second. And so that's something that's going to be really big. And if you just want to learn a skill set that you can use for the rest of your life outside of a job to generate income, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, this is a great skill set to have. And so that's what I would close with. And we look forward and get excited about, sharing and teaching with folks. And the last thing I'll say is I'm also a basketball coach, and I don't like to lose. And so I told everybody one year that I was taking our team undefeated. We're going to win the championship. And that's exactly what I did. And so I share that to say I love coaching people and coaching winners to be successful. I don't like to lose, and I don't like for my team to lose. And so when you come on our team, we're going to give you everything we got. You got to do your part. You got to show up for practice and be prepared. But we're going to give everything we got to help you guys be successful at this thing called the stock market.
We've been talking with J.R. Fenwick. His website is flipthatstock.com. J.R., thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
ABC is next on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.